Hi. It's go time.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, hello. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you here. I know many of you are just starting to get online, so we're going to do some introductions first before we get into our topics to allow people a few more minutes to join us. This is our second CAM cheer chat. So again, welcome. We're super pumped. I'm Christina Wilson. I coach at Brighton, a Division I school.
I'm Heather Prentice. I coach currently at Portage Northern. I have also coached at Climax Scotch, which was a Division IV school at the time, and Langsburg High School, which also was a Division IV high school.
I'm Anna Ramirez. I coach in Grand Rapids at West Catholic, which is Division III.
Awesome. So we have representation from all divisions, so we'll get lots of opinions here on different topics. So we took some of your suggestions from our Facebook post earlier in the week on some topics you would like to be covered, and then we kind of came up with some on our own as well, and I know that there were some that came out of some of the meets yesterday also. So we're going to probably spend about an hour-ish, just getting right down into all these topics, and like I say, you'll get a lot of varying opinions between all of us. There will be a lot of different ideas based on school size and experience and what we've done and what each coach has done on their own. So hopefully we can help you out in any way. Maybe you can get some new ideas. We really thought our first kind of I don't want to say most important, but our first topic would be, what do you do on snow days? So our district had a couple last week. I think we've all been in the same boat.
Not looking so
this week, not looking great either. And I know that schools have different policies on snow days as well, where some schools it's no school, no practice whatsoever. My particular district, we have a policy where the athletic director makes the call, and I know that some other schools just kind of have an open policy. If you feel that you can do it, your kids can make it, go for it. So snow days, yeah, they're very difficult. I think obviously first and foremost, the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh my God, I can't lose a day of practice. Right. That's like the first thing that comes to my mind. But obviously, the health and safety of our students and our athletes is. Oh God, yeah. You could be putting yourself in a much more risky situation, feeling like you have to go for that practice when really there's a lot of things that you can have your kids do at home and on their own that can be just as beneficial. For us, we use the GroupMe app, and we do a lot of like time-lapse videos and ask them to do a lot of things at home on their own, and they have to record that time-lapse video and send that back so you can see that they're actually doing it.
I've never used that before.
GroupMe is the name of it. It's just a group messaging system. It makes it really nice.
The nice thing is there's no charges for it. It's a free app, and like iPhone, Droid, whatever type of phone your kids have, you can all message together, and it doesn't give anybody any charges.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
And you can send videos and photos through it as well. So I like it. It's just a nice central location to kind of keep everything. But on snow days, I've done a multitude of things, and I think for our kids in our current, what we have going on now, round one is easy for all of them to do at home. So I many times will ask my kids to do a full out round one, including jumps, including vocals and facials and everything, and send that video so that, they're at least, getting up and getting moving and getting warm and kind of going through all of those things. And they send that video, and then we have that opportunity to look at it and say, oh, you did really great facials here, and I still noticed you maybe have that flex toe. Let's work on that. So you can do a lot of remote coaching through video usage.
We do cardio also, because when you have consecutive days off, like probably Monday is what we're anticipating. Yeah. And we had days off last week, so we missed exams. So we're looking at 2 to 3 days where it's hard to get practice in. So they have to do a cardio, whether it's a treadmill or an elliptical, and they have to do the group meeting and show that they've done some sort of cardio, because that's what I noticed at the end of the week, getting into, once we got them back after the snow days, they couldn't breathe and they were very breathy again because they had missed 3 or 4 days of any cardio workout. So on top of everything else, like run, get on the elliptical, go out and shovel, do something.
Right. Something to be active.
Yeah, get your heart rate going.
Yeah, I go on Pinterest a lot too, and I find like workout programs on there, and I'll send them a picture of those workout programs, and then they have to do that, and again, do like the time-lapse video. But with it being, you mentioned exams, last week we were supposed to have finals as well, and one of my days I abandoned the cheer, and I said, send me a time-lapse of 1 hour of studying.
Yeah.
Because it was exam week. So I had, girls, they show me, they start off with a blank piece of paper, and then at the end we've got 2-3 pages of notes, whatever it is. But with those finals and exams now, obviously they have to be academically eligible to cheer too, as much as athletically. So yeah, we did that, and gosh, with these studies coming up, our exams are now next week, and so that might be affected again. I don't know, it's been a crazy couple of weeks.
I think you have to do something to make them accountable too, though, because if you have kids that don't do it, so like, if you don't all do it, then you all have to do it when you get here, and next time it's on top of what's scheduled. So to kind of,
I know a lot of schools do this, but we call them cheer sisters. So everyone has a sister on the team, and you have to go to your sister and show them your time lapse and what you worked on.
Oh, that's a good
Everyone
idea.
wants to be the sister who didn't do it. Because I think they hold each other accountable, sometimes more so than if I'm coming down and saying, hey, give me 10 push-ups because you didn't do this or something like that.
Absolutely.
Another thing I have done that is keeping them accountable, I think, is I have created a Google Doc or a Google form where I'm able to insert videos and ask them to watch and give some critiques or feedback on their video from maybe the last competition. And so they're then expected to, I want to look at you guys and not the camera. That's where we go. So they're able to watch those videos and kind of give their critiques or whatever, and so then they all have those feedback and are able to have those conversations.
So also, if anything comes up that we're discussing that you want a little bit more detail on, or you have any questions, just go ahead and comment it. We have the ability to kind of check through them, and we can touch on any topics that you might see that we can help you with. Okay, so moving on, another one, this kind of came out of this past week's worth of meets, and it was personal to me as well, and I know that there are some from yesterday, and it was more around how do you approach your scores with either your team or with officials after the competition. I know for me, we had a meet on Wednesday where as the coach, but as the team, we kind of felt our scores were lower than what they had been, than our normal average. So I had to approach my kids with that, and they always want to know the scores. What did we get? Did we reach our goals? Did we do this? And I tell my team the scores at competitions, what the exact numbers that we get, and if we're ahead, we're behind, whatever it is. And so when I told them their score after round one, they were kind of like, "What? We don't get it." And so I just made sure that I kind of talked about the process and the performance aspect of it versus the numbers aspect of it. I kind of had to flip and kind of go in that direction with that particular meet, because I knew that telling them the scores and the actual numbers wasn't going to get the desired results as maybe it had previously.
I think it's important, kind of touching on that, if it happens the other way around. So just yesterday, my team actually got their highest round 3 score of the season. Great, so exciting. But we didn't accomplish our goal in round 3 of hitting all our stats. We still dropped a stat. So we still had the conversation of, yeah, it's great, you guys, this score is awesome, but did we accomplish everything we said we were going to? No. What can we do to change for next week? I think it's also important to remind them that you have to continue to earn a high score like that, especially if it's much higher than your average. And maybe the whole meet is scoring higher than the average. Right. I think you have to talk about it both ways, when your scores are lower and when your scores are higher with your team.
In some years, my team wants to know the scores and they're very into it, and then other years they don't. I think you need to ask that question before you get to your first meet and judge your kids on how, if they can handle knowing the score and how they're going to react, if they're going to keep going, if it's good or bad. But I think it's a good thing to talk to your kids about the performance is more important than what the actual number is, because the number could fluctuate in your side of the state, in your location, who else is in the gym. That's always my first question. Who else is in the gym with you? And not every performance is exactly the same. So even though you may feel that your kids did a better job, your score might not go up. It might be the same score you've been getting. So I think it's part of our sport that we have to find a way to communicate with our kids, though, and get them to be satisfied with what they've put out that day. And you had a great score, but they weren't satisfied, and that happens a lot too. And that keeps pushing them for a better score and a better performance overall.
Yeah, we do talk about, we watch film after all of the competitions, and when we watch film, I'm very honest with them. Sometimes I will say, I think that was low for what we actually performed, but there have been many times where I say, oh, they gave you a 10? I sure wouldn't have, right? So we kind of have, we touch on both sides of it, the low and the high, but I will be honest, it is difficult to kind of pull it together myself. When I'm at that competition, I see that really low score. Like I have to put on that, you know, like a fake persona almost. When you go up to the team and they're like, what is our scores? And you tell them and they're like, what? Oh my gosh. Like, you know, I don't want to play into the, I can't believe it. You know, you kind of have to coach yourself as much as you have to coach the kids too to handle the situation.
Do you guys, sorry, we did not talk about this part beforehand. Do you guys scores like after each round?
Yes. Sure do.
I really think it's important that everyone looks at those scores between competitions to make sure people are human. You know, they don't. If there might be an error when they're doing a calculation, and you really should be checking to make sure that is right.
There's some meets personally where I have my assistants do it.
Sure.
But I found that just that, like, I cannot hide on my face get it up like, oh, we have like such a low score, and then go talk to my team. They'll know immediately by looking at my face, but if I'm happy or not happy with their score. So I feel like I can coach them better if I don't personally know in the moment.
Okay.
Just personally.
Okay.
Try it, don't try it.
Yeah. And I actually don't talk with the girls much about scores during competition because they don't really necessarily want to know them. But we talk a lot about them after the competition and having them watch film. And before I share judges' comments, I always ask them to share their own comments and what do they see? What, you know, when you're watching this video of your performance, what do you notice? And really what they notice is 95% chance it's the exact same thing as what the judges are noticing too. So it's nice for them to be able to have their own feedback too before they get mine. Yes, before they get mine or any officials.
Absolutely.
With that, approaching the officials, if you do get a score that you feel like I don't get it, I don't understand how we got these, where did you get from, you do have a right to go up to the officials and say, hey, can you show me where you took off in execution? You know, we all have our sheets and there's a box. Could you say, hey, was there a box that you took off more than another? Keeping the lines of communication open is very, very important. But watch how you approach the table. Watch your demeanor. If you are a coach that is confrontational, maybe send your assistant coach over there. But that is what is good about our sport, is that we do have them right there to say, can you show me where, or can you tell me where you took off execution? Because a majority of what we do is we all start at the same place, but it's the execution that's taken off. Or what did you notice in my jumps? Or I see that you didn't have time for comments. I get it. It's quick, it's fast, but what did you see?
I ask questions after almost every meet. Just clarify, and honestly, I just go up to it and say, what did you see? Like, where can I improve? What can I work on with them? Where did you take off? If there's a certain score I see a trend with my team on, I'll ask specifically, like, what did you see here? Not necessarily tell them what I've been seeing, but just what did you notice? And they give really good feedback. Even sometimes they'll write comments, but like you said, it's so fast. Sometimes I don't even know what they mean or what they're talking about. Like maybe I have become blind to it from seeing it so often. So asking for clarification, I've gotten really good feedback from judges by doing that.
And I think when you approach them, you know, respectfully and just, inquisitively, that they really do have, every judge has their own system, and they have a system in a way of saying, okay, I took off a point for this, this, and this, and then you have a little bit of feedback, some areas that you know that you can for sure work on. In terms of safety, if you get safety penalties, I always keep my manual with me, and I always take my manual with me when I am approaching the safety judge, so I can say, here is where I'm looking in my interpretation. Can you show me where you are looking and finding your interpretation? And then having that conversation. I shouldn't say ever. I don't typically approach a safety judge expecting that my penalty is going to be reversed or taken away. Right. I approach it with the idea of understanding where it came from, and then asking, how could I maybe adjust this stuff? Or is there something I could do that would make it legal? Right? I want to make sure that it's clear that we're not saying, please go up to every judge and they'll, reverse any penalties or give you any points back. Not at all. Yeah. Just that you can get feedback going into your practice on Monday or Tuesday or whatever day.
Or it's in the locker room that you have to go talk to your kids. Yeah.
Especially if there's no comments on it. It's so fast that they can give you something tangible to go into practice the next Monday and work on and focus on with your team.
With that being said, too, I have to give Jen from Tri-County a shout out here, because it's her paperwork that I saw it on, and like light bulb moment. So my particular team with my choreography, I do my jumps in round one back to back, like pretty immediately. We land, we stomp, clap, and then we go into the high V for the next jump. And I saw Jen had put a note on her round one sheet right above the jumps that said, our jumps are performed back to back. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is so smart. Giving the judges a heads up to say, hey, look, my second jump is coming right away. And for me, I want that to be known. So I have decided to take it upon myself to just put the note on the score sheet. Hey, this is what we do. This is what we choose to do. We choose to do them back to back. So I just want to make you aware so that you're ready for it when they come back to back.
Yeah, and you're looking and watching.
Right. Absolutely.
I think your approach is the most important thing, though. If you approach it and say, I have a question, but you can only ask questions about your team, not other teams. And if you don't feel you were scored fairly, probably should take a deep breath and just try to find a question specifically about your team that could be answered.
Our next topic was, as we now approach February and we're getting into league championships and districts, regional, state finals, kind of the big tournament time is approaching very quickly. It's like the season has gone by so fast. What do you do to get your team ready for the MHSAA tournament or your league championships, or even just a big competition? For us, competing at Stony Creek was a big competition. We had to mentally prepare for that a little bit differently than what we would for some of our other meets. But specifically for us, as we go into districts week, I try to make it a little bit more of a fun environment, if you will. We do a spirit week leading up to districts week, because I think it's very important that your kids are not so stressed out about what is coming in the competition that's ahead, that they kind of get a little bit of that calmness. They kind of take a step back from it and say, okay, we do have something big coming and we do have work to do. Yes. However, I don't want to dwell on it so much that we get so stressed out. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the kids are stressed out for 7 days about this one competition. Yeah. So I try to do a couple things to kind of take a little bit of the pressure off and maybe their mind away from it, at least a little bit each day.
I agree. Yesterday was a big day because there were 40 teams at Lamcoa, which was great. But to prepare the kids for that, one, I didn't arrive early because I was late in round one. So I knew it would be a longer day, a longer morning. So we didn't get there super early. And then we had at least an hour between each performance. So getting them, you know, making sure they have food or a snack, getting them in the locker room, not overworking them. I mean, you're there. You're not going to, unless you have to make changes, you're not going to get probably better on that morning and that warm up. So just paying attention to the schedule on those big meets, especially.
Absolutely.
Because there are big breaks in between them. So
that one and the one yesterday, the Loncoa in particular, yeah, it is a long day. There's a lot of time between the rounds. I mean, it's a very well run meet, but we are very deliberate about when we start warming up.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't want to start warming up too early, and then all of a sudden you have a big downtime, and then all of a sudden you have to warm up again, and you just kind of be very conscious of the competition and the schedule and how it's going. If I know I'm going early in a round, then, you know, I talk to my team beforehand about, hey, we're not going to take that 10 minutes between the competitions on the competition floor. We're going to spend that time, you know, visualizing and focusing and doing what we need to do to prepare. So I always tell my kids to round order well in advance of the competition, because I think that round order can play a mental aspect of our sport as well. So I make sure that they know beforehand, and we practice that way. There have been times where we've gone late in a round and then early in the next round where warming up between the two really wasn't an option.
Yeah.
So I had to run my practice that way, where I warmed up 1 and 2 right before I went in 1, because I didn't have time between 1 and 2 to do a warm up.
What do you guys normally do? Do you normally only practice round 1 before you go out for round 1 and then switch to round 2, or do you do all 3 throughout? What's normal for you?
I stick to just the 1, really. But I do give them, it's kind of tricky because I give them a little bit when we first get there. We do our dynamic and we stretch. And then I say, you have 10 minutes to do whatever you need to do, whether it's a stunt, a tumble, or whatever. And then after that 10 minutes is up, then we go round 1. And we're round 1 until the round 1 performance is over. And then we're round 2 until that performance is over. And then same for 3.
Yeah, I do the same. Yeah,
that's what we do. We switch. Sometimes it's round 3 first.
Practice.
Yeah.
But what about
I'm talking about at the meet itself.
Yeah. We generally, when they first get there, like you said, we do our dynamic warm up, and then I would try and have them just do a little bit of everything. Like get your backs warm, do a few walkovers, do a QB, like just do like some of your basic stunts just to warm up. And then before each round, we kind of hit each one.
Yeah.
Section them out.
I see a lot of teams before round 1 doing round 3. I've just never been that coach. I've never done that. This is what you got to focus on. We'll do that.
Yeah.
Unless the order is so tight and it's a smaller meet, then I do understand that. But
yeah, and I do the same too. That I only focus one round at a time. Except that in some situations we have specific mat assigned times.
yeah, I don't like those.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't like that.
Well, it happens.
I know.
So that would be my only exception too. Or if you have to change around the day of competition,
Well,
because that happens too. So
yeah.
So those would probably be the exceptions to when I don't focus around.
I think when you're preparing your team for the end of the season, a majority of us are done on district day, and so you do want to leave your kids with the best impression and have the most fun that week that you can have, because you want those kids to come back, even though maybe that's their last day as districts. But when you go into a regional and a state final, I think you have to change it up. You can't keep going and going and going for those extra 2 weeks. We've seen teams at state finals, you can tell they're just tired, and they were really, really good in districts and maybe even regionals, but they get to that state finals week and they're tired. They didn't let off enough, and by the time they get there, they don't have anything left for kids. That becomes long. I think for a majority of us that are done on district day, like it doesn't feel long enough, but when you go those 2 extra weeks, that's a long time.
It is a long time. And then again, when your season ends a little earlier than what you are expecting, that's like a whole, you kind of go back and you think about, oh gosh, did I put so much pressure on that week that they kind of like shut down, or you have to manage that stress level, and they are kids and they're learning how to manage stress.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta coach them through that.
Handles that stress a little differently. I always try to talk to my kids done at districts. But there's always that a little bit of hope. So it's like we want to balance that, like keep the hope alive so they don't come in defeated, but also let them have some fun with it so that it's not all coming down to this one moment and then their season's done in their life. So it is a fine line, I think, and you gotta, I think, know your kids, and I think it might be even different year to year for teams too.
Right.
So like fun would be theme practices, having alumni come in, having a buddy practice, having another coach come in, maybe swap practice with them or something like that.
We like to do, a lot of teams do this, but you write the teammate's name in the middle of a sheet and then pass it around. We usually do it at the end of the season as like a keepsake, but sometimes I'll do it like before a big meet of just like, this is why Susan is awesome, like something like that. And everybody writes why Susan is so awesome. It's just kind of something to.
They can't hear us all the time. I think we have to speak louder.
Okay.
Sorry. We'll talk louder.
Score us lower vocals.
Yeah. I've done a couple things. I always do a candlelight, right? The kids really, really love doing that candlelight. They love sharing their reflection on the season. And, we've done it before districts, but, we typically do it before regionals because you really just don't know. So we do a candlelight, but also I think probably the bigger one for my kids is if we don't make it as far as we want to, I still hold that practice the next Monday.
Yeah, we do too.
I still do. I still hold it.
Yeah.
We come together, and maybe it's not the same structure of a practice as what it would have been as if we advanced, but I still always hold that practice. We take some time. It's just kind of nice to get together again and, kind of talk about what happened. And then I use that as goal setting.
Yeah.
I use it as goal setting for the next year. And so we still hold it, and then we, they call it their fun practice, and they stunt with other people that they didn't stunt before, that kind of stuff. But it, there's a lot of things you can do, even though your season might be over, to still kind of hold on to the kids because, if it ends super abruptly, they're not ready to let go either. And I tell you, I'm usually not either.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you can practice until state finals, even if you're not in the tournament. So if your team isn't making it out of districts, you still can practice the week of regionals and the week of state finals and have fun with those kids. Maybe it's only just open gym kind of concepts, but if you're not making it out, those teams that are making it out are still getting ahead of you because they still are practicing and they're still going. So it is a way to kind of keep your kids motivated and see who's returning.
Right, absolutely. And like I said, goal setting. Because you'll have kids, that are coming back the following year. And if you can write down those goals, it's a really nice thing to go back to. Yeah. We did that last year. We didn't make it out of regionals like we had been hoping to. So we made several posters, all kinds of goals, and I'll tell you, we go back to it all the time. We go back to it all the time. So I think that's just another way to, you can kind of build your culture within your team moving forward. Okay, everybody good? We want to talk about a little bit about bringing people into your practice.
I have had my football coach come into practice just to kind of give the girls a pep talk and just talk to them just about, giving their best efforts and putting it all out there. And that, because he's very respected in our district, so in our school. So it's a great way to get him. It was awesome for him to actually be able to watch the girls perform because, of course, during sideline season, he's busy coaching his team and he's always grateful for them, but never gets to actually see them perform. So
I've had my baseball coach come in and speak to the kids and give them kind of what he does. He's a great coach. He's been there a long time. Again, pulling kids in, like if there's kids shooting baskets in the back of the gym, I'll say, hey, will you come watch this? And they just watch. And it just gives them an audience. It gives somebody else besides me standing there all the time.
I think even if it's not bringing people in to watch, like my team practices in the cafeteria most of competitive season. Basketball team, wrestling team are walking back and forth. So sometimes I'll just pull their coach aside and they'll send a quick message to their team and the whole team walks by and says, hey, good luck on Saturday, girls. Like just a quick something to, it's a quick fire up. And they're like, oh, I had no idea wrestling knew we had districts on Saturday. Kind of thing. It's just something fun.
Right. Yeah. And like you say, if you can do buddy practices with other teams in your area, it's, you know, it's always good.
Assuming we have practice.
Yeah, if you can do those buddy practices, I think it's good for the kids to build the camaraderie, especially with teams that are kind of in your area that you see regularly at competitions. You can support each other.
Yep.
I know sometimes as a new coach, it's really hard to build that network. So if you find that you're at the same competition as a lot of those teams, you can kind of use that opportunity to try to network with that coach there and say, hey, I see that we are located fairly close to each other. We end up in a lot of competitions. Would you be interested in opening up and doing a buddy practice? And you get a whole brand new set of eyes coming in and looking at your material.
Right.
Reach out to teams in your conference. Actually, Ann at Cedar Springs, who's in my conference, had a great idea of like, let's try to get we only have 5 schools in our conference, but let's try and get all together and just like round robin, see what we can help each other clean, see what we can do to help each other towards the end of the season. So if you don't have a connection, reach out to those teams in your conference that you know you're going to see a lot and see what they can do to help you if they want to get together and just make those connections.
For sure.
Sometimes it's nice too just to have somebody else telling your girls probably the same things you say all the time, every single practice. Right, but you know that just when somebody else is the one saying it, especially if it's another cheerleader from a different team, if they're the one saying it, then it's just received completely different.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, I've done the same as Heather. I've brought in coaches from other teams in the school. Like, you know, like Anna said, her football coach, we're close with our football coach as well. We've had the wrestling coach come in, and I pulled in baseball players who were doing throwing and hitting practice in the gym and coming in. And then not only just having them there, like for the pressure aspect of the girls performing under that pressure situation, but I've also asked them, okay, what did you see? To a completely untrained eye, if they're saying, oh, it looked like she was going to fall. I thought she was going to fall, and then she didn't. That was awesome. Well, okay, your skill looks like it's going to fall. You better pull that together kind of thing. So getting untrained eyes in there can really actually help a lot too. All right. Yep. Good deal. Okay. Our next topic that we wanted to bring up was the process and writing proposals. As the CAM board, this is one of our more intense, if you will, meetings that we have. We go over a lot of proposals. There's a lot of really, really good ideas out there from our membership on ways that we can improve our sport. I think we can kind of say as a whole, everybody wants this sport to be amazing and be the best that it can be and do the most for our athletes. And really kind of one of the only ways to do that is to put forth those proposals on what changes do you want to see and how can we make it better. I know for the past 3 years, I've put proposals out there about stunting and more allowances for stunting because I personally think that we can try to move forward with offering a little bit more stunting. So I know I put those out there, but proposals can come from anyone. It does not have to be just from a CAM board member or even a CAM member, because we do have some coaches that are not CAM members for our sport. You can write those proposals.
You don't actually have to go through CAM at all. If you have a proposal that you feel you would like to send to MHSAA, you can send it directly to them. It doesn't have to go through the board. It can go, or both.
Right. Yeah. There's a couple different steps that you can take there. You can send it to CAM, which I'm sure, you know, on the page, the deadline just passed for proposals for this year. But on the page, you probably saw that there was a job form you could fill out for those proposals. But you can even just go beyond that and just email it right to Kathy. And Kathy does take those proposals. So one of the first steps, if it is sent to CAM, is that the CAM board does review all of the proposals. And we talk about them, and there's a lot of conversation that goes in to these proposals. A lot of conversation, and it's not always easy conversation that happens with the proposals, but it's good. It's good talk.
The board is, you as a Division I coach are looking at it very differently than me from the three perspective, or somebody else from a rural area. And so by having all those different views and those different perspectives, we ask the question, is this proposal good for all of our kids? Is it as a whole good for the whole sport?
And, you know, sometimes our ideas for proposals come from, you know, like I'm the person that watches the Instagram accounts and the videos from All Star and the high school championships that are coming up, and I see these high school teams from around the country doing all these different stunts. I say, wait a minute, we can't do that. Well, here I come. I'm going to write a proposal on it, you know, and it can come from just seeing what's happening around the country. It can come from a collection of data. You know, sometimes there are surveys sent out, and we do a collection of data to see, would this benefit our membership, or is our membership in favor of this before, and kind of take that information to create a proposal, right? Take the data first.
If you see something on the CAM page or a survey is sent out, that is important. I mean, that data all is very, very important, no matter where it's coming from. So
it helps give us a voice.
Yes.
And as a whole, in what people are thinking.
Yeah.
Not just the 20 people that are in the board meeting.
Right. Yeah. I know the last survey that was sent out was heavily participated in, which was really, really nice, because then we got some good data from it that didn't seem skewed by low participation. Right. There was a lot of people participating in it. So, you know, we'll take the data and see where it goes from there. I think it's important to note too that proposals, even though they do go to Kathy or they do come to the CAM board, we are not the deciding factor, right? Unfortunately, sometimes, but actually, fortunately, it's a really good process that it does go through. It comes to either Kathy or CAM, and then it goes to a subcommittee meeting within the MHSAA, and that subcommittee is made up of cheer coaches and officials from all across the state, all different divisions, and then we talk about it there, right, in subcommittee, and we see, you know, how it could affect everyone across the board, and then we take a vote on it, whether we like it. It could pass subcommittee, or it could not, and then that's kind of the end of its road. So I always think about it as like the government process, right? You can't just like put a law into place and go. It's got to go through the channels, and that's like really how it goes.
Our president of our organization does not just do what they want.
So it will go to it'll go to subcommittee, which is coaches and officials from all across. Not in subcommittee. The next step after subcommittee is committee, and that's where they bring in ADs and cheer officials and coaches.
No, MIAAA.
MIAAA. Okay, so the committee is a little more broad in terms of who comes and getting perspectives from more than just cheer coaches and officials. It goes to those ADs because, you know, they have to deal with it just as much as we do. So, and then if committee decides to pass, it goes to rep council, and rep council is created by MHSAA with a large number of, yes, from different varying areas. Yeah, let's see. I don't know.
What was the conversation?
This was in terms of the survey that was sent out.
What does it say?
What's the conversation about round 2? That was the survey that was sent out. Again, that just goes back to sometimes we collect data and put out those surveys to collect data to see how our membership feels about certain topics.
So we basically what we were talking about at our CAM board meeting was specifically about the structure of our current format, and so we decided to reach out to see what others' opinions and thoughts were. So, when we're finished collecting that, maybe we can then speak some more to that.
Yeah.
But
I think it's still too early to talk about what's going to happen with that. I mean, we did have some proposals come forward regarding round 2, many different things about round 2. We had some proposals come in specifically related to that, and there were many of them. So we kind of thought it was important to gather that data about round 2 and say, we got a lot of proposals on this, yes, so I think it's worth looking into. So that survey, that was kind of that's the start of the process, is gathering the data about round 2. We don't really have a specific direction on what's going to happen, or if anything at all will, but we're just kind of gathering the data again on how the membership feels about that round 2, since we got quite a few proposals on it.
And that is a good suggestion. She said a 1-person variation. One year I only had 6 kids and I only could put 5 kids out. I would have gotten a penalty for that year. And I just ran into that AD ironically this weekend, and he said I wouldn't even have a team if I only had that many kids. He's like, we only have 192 kids in the school. So I think that that's part of our process, is looking. It's not just about Division I. It's not just about Division IV. Like, what's the best for the sport for everybody? Like, and we are getting a lot of, we don't like the mandated numbers and we don't like this. And so we're trying to figure out what's the answer, because the multiplier wasn't the answer, and
The competitor multiplier,
difficulty
multiplier.
So, like, we're trying to figure out, like, we can't fix it if we don't have we can't say, well, what if we tried this, or what if we did this kind of thing. We agree that there's a lot of concern about it, and we're losing kids and teens. So we're trying to advocate for our sport and get ahead of the game and figure out what we can do.
I think the idea behind all of this is that we want to increase participation. That's kind of really what it comes down to, is we want to increase the participation in our sport, and that's really ultimately our goal. And whether it includes ideas for round 2, or whether participation includes ideas for round 3 or round 1, I think really what it boils down to is we want to see that increased participation. What is it? Right. Okay, so was there a question on there about it? Okay. Another topic that had been brought up was choreography for smaller teams. I think I'm going to have to sit this one out.
And there were a lot of people asking in the last couple of weeks, should I drop down in numbers? Should I take the penalty to get more difficulty out there? I think there's a couple different parts of the penalty. Is if you don't have the numbers, you don't have the numbers. Even if you have, like, I'm a Division I right now, so if I have 12 kids, that's still very risky to try to put 12 kids out there and say, well, let's just hope everybody shows up and is healthy and eligible and all those things. Because I just went through it for 2 years where they weren't. And so I could pick a number of 8 or 10 and say, I'm pretty confident amongst these kids, we can do this. And yes, I could put more difficulty out there with less kids, but it wasn't a benefit, because in round 1 and 3, you're taking a hit there. So you really have to look at, if you don't have the kids, you don't have the kids. I mean, it is what it is, and this is what you got. Or if you know you have kids with grade issues, at-risk kids, you're probably going to have to choreograph at a smaller amount. If you are trying to do it to push your kids, I understand that, I respect that, especially if you're paying for tumbling and they're not getting it, and I get that, I totally understand it, but you have to look back and say, is it just for one skill? That's probably not. I mean, you said the math is like 6 points. Yeah. That's not worth it. And your kids are never going to get better when they sit on the bench. They just won't. They want to play. They want to participate. And if you take a hit in the difficulty, you're probably going to be able to get a couple more points out of round one, because it's very difficult to choreograph for a small amount of kids and get a good vocal score and a good general impression score in round one. It's in the training. It's just not as impressive. 6 is not as impressive. I mean, that's literally what they say, and I understand that. It's not. If you only have 6, I think it's impressive, but I get it. 16 is very impressive. And I'm making people mad. I can't, this is the truth. But if you're doing it because you think you're going to get a higher round 2 score, you're going to take a hit. So it's not worth it. It's not. Get the kids out there, let them play, choreograph it for every kid that you can get out there. That's my opinion of it. I had to deal with it for 2 years. I could throw better skills right now with less kids and score better, but I would not score as well around 1 and 4 or 1 and 3, and I would take a hit, and I would rather get those kids out there and not take a penalty.
So you really have to think about your future too. So if right now it's going to be best to get all those kids out on the mat, because they need that experience on the mat in order to move on to the next year, then get them out there. Get them out there. It's okay. It's okay to have those lower skills.
Kind of taking this topic another direction, you can still do a lot of really creative things with smaller numbers on the floor. I mean, I think teams of 16 and teams of 12 and lower, I mean, you're still all out for the same mission. Is how can I make, whether it's my round 1 or my round 3, visually appealing while still being clean. I think that's kind of the battle we're all faced with, no matter how many kids we have on our team. There's still a lot of things you can do, whether it's formations, whether it's ripples. There's different things that you can do. Bring your kids close, spread them out across the whole mat. I think it's harder with smaller numbers because it's not as visual. I'm not saying it's not harder, but I think we're still all kind of facing that same battle. How can I make this interesting to look at and still have my kids be able to execute it well?
Right.
But I think fortunately, I mean, I have a smaller team. I have 15 kids on my team. We're a Division II school, so I've never had to go, fortunately, below mandate, but we compete with 12 on the mat in rounds 1 and 3. And I think round 3 in particular, I just literally found any way my team can kick at all.
Right.
Just little, random, braced kicks, any, weird 4-point flare there is. I think my team does it this year. And is it the most difficult round 3 in the world? No, but it's pretty clean and it's fun to watch. So I think that there's still ways you can do that, whether you have 2 stunt groups, whether you have 2 groups and a kid, 2 extra kids who do shoulder sits, or even if you're just synchronizing those teams do forward rolls, those extra kids who aren't in a stunt group.
Right.
It doesn't matter, I think, what they're doing, as long as it's synchronized and clean.
Right.
There's still a lot of things that you can do with those kids.
I saw a smaller team yesterday do something that I thought was just absolutely amazing. I think they had 6 on the floor in round 3, and they did a really awesome job of rotating everybody's position, right? At one point, one girl was a flyer, and then at another point, she was in front tumbling and doing flexibility skills. And I honestly saw one girl be a back spot, a base, and a flyer within that round 3. And I thought, oh my gosh, how wonderful. If you can coach your kids to do these different positions, your kids all have different strengths. Well, you know what, maybe you have one that does a back tuck. Well, absolutely. Right, and if you have one girl that can back tuck, you don't want her to do a back tuck every section, that poor thing, right? If you can get her into different spaces and showcase what all of your kids can do, then that would be amazing. You have a really beautifully flexible flyer. Well, it's just as pretty to have that flexibility on the floor as well and not in the air. So I was so impressed with that team yesterday that did all of that shuffling, you know, with 6 on the floor. I was really impressed.
I mean, that's where we got into the difficulty multiplier and the competitive multiplier years ago. Because people were saying, well, it's easy if you put less kids out, but that's all you got. That's all you got to watch. And if you only have one stunt group out there, they have to be spot on, perfect. Mm-hmm. And they started at 20 versus a 22, so they really don't have many points to give up. Right. It's not easy. My philosophy is get as many out there as you can.
Yeah, I agree.
If you have them, and if you're going for a skill, you really better do the math and make sure that it's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. And you probably are going to have kids not come back that don't start.
Yeah, Carly brought up a really good point when we were talking earlier too about smaller numbers. That I think you know, our camp companies do a good job of teaching stunts that use a varying number of individuals, where some of them are 4, some are 5, and especially with, you know, if you want to do that T drop, you have to have the extra catcher from an extension, then, you know, you can utilize them there. So I think our camp companies really do a nice job with teaching stunts that use a varying number of competitors. Even with just 3 competitors, you know, they make those modifications for teams to perform them with only 3 members. So, all right. Well, I mean, is there anything that we did not touch on that you are just pressed to know? We are absolutely open to any questions and that you might have. I mean, okay, maybe most of them. But we went through a whole. I feel like we touched on a lot of things today. A lot of things. The last topic that we had on there was just kind of some of your end of season traditions as we're moving forward, and you know, we have 4 weeks left. It's going to go by so quickly, especially if we have these snow days, you know, and we're like not practicing like we all wanted to. But some of your end of season traditions, like I talked about. Okay, deep breath, everybody. We'll all be in the same boat. We'll all be in the same boat. Like I said, that final practice that we do, like the Monday after our last competition, that's probably one of them that my girls really, really love the most. They have such a great time there. You know, they finally get have their cell phones out and take the pictures that they want to do, and we play fun games and those kinds of things. That's kind of one of our really fun traditions that we do at the end.
We have these big shelves that were built in our closet, our storage closet, and the seniors get to sign the shelves. I know some people do the mat, they sign the mat, and we sign the shelves, and then we do like an evaluation, and we do a talk, and then we do a goodbye to the seniors, and then we pull the juniors in, and we say, here you go. It's your time. Like, you lead this team, and where we go, and things like that. So that's what we do at that last.
Right.
And then I'm assuming you do banquets, things like that.
Yeah. And kind of a pass the torch thing is we always have our seniors do opening prayer, and then symbolically it's like that's the last piece that they do, and then the juniors take care of it as closing. So kind of it is that passing over.
Kind of passing it on to the next group of leaders. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we're in public school. Right. Something of the similar nature.
So my team does, you know, however we break it down at practice, like, you know, you stand in a circle and yell fire up your letters or whatever it is. We always have a senior start it, so then the juniors could start it. And
there you go. There you go.
That's kind of what I was going for.
And so I will put this out there too. I begin making my words for the next season right away. I am not lying to you when I tell you that my round 1 words that I have this year were made on Saturday night of regionals last year. Okay, I'm not lying when I say that. That when you have those moments, that like really tug on your heartstrings, whether it is in a positive way or maybe it's kind of scarred you a little bit. You have take those moments and make those words. I've even done it in seasons before where there's been a competition in the middle of the season that just something sparked it, and I wrote it down. So again, as we are kind of transitioning and moving, I know a lot of people around October are like, oh my gosh, I need to do my choreography, I need to do my words. But by that time, I usually have a majority of mine done. All 3 of my rounds, almost every year, are done by the end of March. Words are done end of March.
Keep a note going in my phone, and all the time at competitions, like our team will be on the floor, and I'll be like, ooh, like that's really cool. Like we could spin that this way. And I just keep a running list of, it not even necessarily like words like well baked out stanzas or anything, but just like theme ideas or lines that I like, or something that rhymes with blue.
I like a book. I'm the same way. Like I just write it down. Like band concerts, like your signature kids volleyball game or whatever. I know, like I just write it down. And then
I'll forget it if I don't.
Oh yeah, no, I always.
It would stress me out to wait until October to write down because I don't work well under pressure. I start my words seriously so early and I tweak them little by little until it's time.
Absolutely. Anna, you're looking like are you an October person?
Gosh. Well, no, I am also this to start and just kind of slowly evolve. Sometimes some things wait till October, but most of the time,
For sure.
Most of the time try to start it early and just at least keep it going. I think I have a running list that I've had for years, and also recycle things too, right? If you go back a couple of years and
absolutely. Do any of you have like a set date that you put down for your season and say, I'm not making any changes to any of my rounds after this date?
Well,
ideally, yes.
I do have dates where I say we have this by then, or it's not going on.
Got it.
I've done that more than that.
I would say for me this week, pending, like I try to make most of my changes this week for the rest of the season.
By
February 1. Like, I mean, what is it, like 21 days to break a habit or something like that?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is not quite that type of thing, but I try to give them a full 2 weeks before districts.
Because I think you kind of have to weigh with how big is the change, and do I have enough time to make it clean?
Right. Right. And is it just something that I'm tired of or sick of, or is it going to make a difference in the end, or am I want to make a change to make a change? And sometimes you need to do, like sometimes you need need to change
that. It fires them up a little bit sometimes too,
to do little changes.
If you change the motions throughout, they have to spend some time thinking about it, not just going through it automatically.
Yeah.
I think sometimes that helps.
I try to use this weekend, this last weekend in January as the last competition to try something. I don't want to be at the try phase anymore in February, but also at the same point, if it's not working by the time I get to this weekend, it's not going to work, and it's got to go.
Right.
A change needs to be made. But I try to keep this, the last weekend in January as this is my make or break. It hasn't been clean up to this point. It's probably not going to be clean moving forward. We're going to make that change.
Yeah.
Or we've been regularly kind of hitting this as we've been trying a new stunt. I'm going to put it in this weekend. If it hits, cool, we'll keep it. If not, we'll go back to what we were doing before. So I think this is kind of that point in the season where we're there, where I try my best. Oh, I have, illnesses. That's a whole nother thing. That's a totally different. And unfortunately, academic eligibility is, for us, it's pushed back a little bit because exams are pushed back. So now this academic eligibility, not to put anybody in panic mode, but is pushing back a little bit further and a little bit further. And sometimes those things come up, and you got to make those changes.
Diane mentions that she watches the first competition and then the last on the Monday after districts. And then just kind of see the accomplishments and successes that they have throughout the year. Yeah, just kind of, and I bet you it's pretty funny. I know if I was to do that, the changes that probably evolved from that first competition to the last is probably huge.
Right. I actually just, it's funny that she brought that up. On Friday, I actually told my girls to do that. I said, you know, like we felt so confident at our first competition and we, you know, they really felt like they performed so well. Yeah. I said, I want you to go back and watch that first competition and watch the last one because you might see things that the progress that you've made so far over the season. I know I lose sight of that sometimes. I know the kids lose sight of how far have you really come?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they can dwell on, but we did so good or we scored so high that time. Yeah, but let's look at the progress that we've made already and think about what 4 more weeks can do for us.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Going on an hour.
Yeah, well, we've got some stunt games happening just down the hall. We're going to go check out some of our local teams. I also heard, there's a team in from California. Yeah. So we're going to be able to check out some really, really cool stunt games here. There's still time to get over. If you want to get to Davenport and check out these stunt games, it's so awesome. But
there's a live feed also.
Oh yeah, that's right. So maybe we can work on putting that live feed, the link to it, on the CAM page. So if you're interested, yeah, she's the one. We'll work on that for you. But thank you so much for checking in with us. I know that this video will stay on the page if you weren't able to tune in right at 2, or if you came in a little later, maybe not at all, it'll still be there. And hopefully we were able to provide you a little bit of insight, some ideas, something to move forward from here. So thank you.
Good luck everyone with the rest of your season.
Yeah, we're getting into the big ones. So I know. Good luck everybody.
Bye.
Bye.